Hey, so the first thing we're going to do is to set up some XtremIO vSphere best practices. In previous version, you could go ahead to a specific ESX server, right-click it and set the ESXi or best practices, but one of the feedback that we've got from you, the customers, is the ability to automate it across the cluster level. So it's very easy, just go on the cluster level, right-click it, all EMC VSI plugin action, ESX or settings, and simply select all of these that are relevant for your environment. Note that the new feature for this release is the optimized setting for cloning to XtremIO volumes. It will use specific recommended Xcopy block size that will make your Xcopy operation, e.g. cloning operation, much faster and with an even lower latency. But again, the beauty here is the ability to just automate this across the cluster. Just then press the next button. You give it an ESX server that you want the root credentials for. Typically, it will be the same username and password for all the ESX servers. Press the next button and you are done. It will then go ahead and optimize all of these best practices that otherwise you will have to use things like power CLIs or scripts or things of that nature. Next, we are going to provision a volume and then format it as a VMFS data store. Traditionally, you will have to first provision the volume using the storage array, then go to vSphere, scan the HPA adapters after the mapping part, and then format it as a VMFS data store. We want you to basically do it all using the VSI plugin. So as you can see, I've got one volume and one snapshot, and what I'm going to do now is actually going to use the VSI plugin to provision a data store for me. It's asking me a name. I can provision one data store or more. Let's just provision two data stores. We call them Diaz. Then press the next button, VMFS. It asks me which array do you want to provision it from. This version also supports the multi-cluster management. However, I'm not using multi-cluster management on my arrays, but that basically allows you to manage all of your XtremIO arrays from one XMS. Here I'm just going to use this specific array. Press the next button. Select either all the ESX servers in the cluster, or if I want to be very specific, I can map it only to a specific host. However, in my case, I'm just going to select the entire cluster. Next, it's going to ask me for the size of the volume. Let's just go with 1 terabyte. Some specific XtremIO settings that I can either choose to enable or disable. And how many volumes. So let's just pick up 2 volumes. So VSI will go ahead and automate and create 2 volumes for me. If we go back to the array, we'll see in a second the 2 volumes have been created. Then we'll see that these volumes are mapped and eventually formatted as VMFS data stores. So there you go. You can see these 2 data stores have already been provisioned at the array level, and mapping was also done. You can see the LAN ID that VSI gave to each one of the volumes. And next, it's actually going to go to vSphere and also format them as data store, which is what it's doing right now. It's a very simple way to basically create data stores. Now let's assume that I ran out of capacity on one of these data stores. Traditionally, you will have to go to the array, extend the volume at the array level if the array supports volume extension, then go to vSphere, rescan the HPA adapters, and increase the volume using the vSphere level. Again, you can now do it all from vSphere. Again, you go to the VSI plugin itself, go to the data store that you want to extend, right-click it, EMC VSI action, extend storage. Remember, this data store was 1 terabyte in its size. It's going to ask me how much additional capacity do I want. So let's give it another 2 terabytes. So it's going to be a total of 3 terabytes. So 2 more terabytes. Next, finish. And that's pretty much it. A couple of seconds, we're going to see that this data store becomes 3 terabytes in its size. It will then go into an increase and do it all for me. There you go. From an XtremIO perspective, this volume is now 3 terabytes in its size. Remember, it was 1 terabyte to start with. And if we go to vSphere, we will also see that it's been increased to 3 terabytes from the 1 terabyte that it was before. Very easy, convenient way to basically manage your entire storage array when it comes to vSphere using the vCenter plugin. A new feature of this release is the ability to run space reclamation at the data store level using a scheduler. So in the old version, you could always done a space reclamation, but that was a one-time off operation. Now you can actually schedule it. So let's see how it goes. You can go to the all EMC VSI plugin action, press the reclaim unused storage. And now, as you can see, you can actually have a scheduler, whether you can either run it now or let it run for a daily, weekly, or a monthly interval. However, we recognize that in many cases you as a system administrator would like to run space reclamation across multiple data stores at the same time. So how can you do it? Well, in my case, I group all of these data stores into this folder known as VDI storage, and now I can actually run space reclamation directly at the folder level and go to all EMC VSI plugin action, reclaim unused storage, give it the credential to do it, and go with the scheduler, do run now, for example, press the finish button, and now this is the array that it's actually going to run on. So in a second you will see that the bandwidth goes very, very high and the logical capacity will start to decrease. So this is a highly deduped environment. So you will see the logical capacity gradually going down and down and down. There you go. As you can see, it started to run space reclamation, and if we filter it via volumes, you can see that this doesn't just try to run space reclamation across all the data stores at the same time. It will actually start with the first one, which is this one, and then go to the next one, and so on and so forth. This is in order to try to prevent as much as storage utilization on the array itself. Okay, now that space reclamation is finished running on all the 18 data stores that I asked it to, you can see a substantial gain in terms of the logical capacity in the XtremIO array, which just magnified the idea that space reclamation is important on virtualized environments, and now you can schedule at least the data store level space reclamation directly using the VSI plugin. Next, we're going to do some cool things at the data store level. So what you see here is that I've got a data store known as mgmt-info1. It's consumed roughly 756 gig, and this is the data store as it's been presented at the vSphere layer. Using the EMC VSI plugin, we can first see what does the array see from a consumption point of view. This is what we see at the backend from a logical capacity, and that's a very highly requested feature because vSphere may see different results based on the fact that it's using thin or thick VMs, and also the fact that this vSphere doesn't discard zeros as opposed to the XtremIO arrays, which doesn't count zeros as part of the capacity that we measure. Next, we're going to see how we can use the VSI plugin to backup vSphere data store or data stores, and how to be able to restore VM or VMs from it. So what you can see here is a data store that I carve up on an XtremIO array called temp01, and this data store contains 4 VM, VM001 up till VM004. If we open to the web interface, this is how it looks here. And if we go to the XtremIO array, that is the data store. So what I'm going to do now is show you the capabilities within this VSI plugin. So from a snapshot perspective, I have really two options to do it. I can either take a one time off snapshot, or I can use the VSI scheduler to do it. So let's see how the scheduler look like. We press the create snapshot scheduler. And here I can see all the settings that I can set up using the scheduler. Basically, I can set the fixed interval, how frequent should I take the snapshot, in terms of seconds, hours, minutes, and so on and so forth, or maybe explicit times that I want to take those snapshots. And here I can also save the retention policy. So for example, after 20 snapshots, start delete the latest one, or after 1 year, or interval in terms of date as opposed to numbers. To retain those snapshots. And I can also specify whether I want snapshot to be taken as a writable snapshot and or as a read-only snapshot as well. So that's the scheduler, that's new to that version. But what I'm going to do now is just take a snapshot, a one-time off snapshot using the take snapshot capability. So here we can see that the VSI plugin is now asking me, do you want to use this snapshot as a writable volume or read and only? Let's do writable snapshot. Press the submit button. And that is, the task is now submitted. And if we go back to the vSphere interface, we can actually see that the VSI plugin is now actually going to take this snapshot, of course, including all the VMs that reside inside of it. So there you go. It now took the snapshot. And if we go to the XtremIO array, we can actually see that the snapshot has been taken. We can see that the snapshot has been taken by VSI because VSI will actually create a tag called VSI snapshot for me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another snapshot of the data store just because I want to show you some restore capabilities. So again, right click the temp01 data store, all VSI action, take snapshots. Again, let's make it a writable snapshot. And VSI will now take this snapshot for me. Okay, so now we can see that indeed we have two array-based snapshots that VSI plugin took for me. Again, we can see it based on the tagging. And if I now press the refresh button, I will see all the snapshots here. Okay, and if we over to the XtremIO Management tab, we can see those two snapshots that indeed has been taken by VSI. And what I can do is basically point a specific snapshot, and then I can either mount it or restore the entire data store. Of course, restoring the entire data store is good if all the VMs on that data store became corrupted or the data store itself becomes corrupted. What I'm going to do now is actually restore a single VM out of this data store. And just like the data store view, I can see the 2 points in time that belong to this VM. Remember, it's a block storage, so this VM resides on the data store that I back up. So how do I restore the VM? Just select the point in time that I want to restore it from, press the restore button. It will ask me whether I want to restore this. Just to confirm, I'm going to apply OK. We can see the job has been submitted. The VSI plugin is now actually mounting the snapshot volume to the ESX server itself. There you go. So basically take a snapshot of a snapshot, which is free on the XtremIO array, and here we can see the mounting. So it's mounting that snapshot to the ESX server. Here we can see the snapshot has been resignature and mounted to ESX02. It's now unregistering the original VM for me because it's there, and of course we want to overwrite it with a new copy. And that's it. It's now using storage vMotion to migrate the VM from the snapshot volume to the source volume that we are restoring it to. There you go. That's the VM. It's now been restored. And lastly, it's going to clean after itself and actually remove the snapshot volume from being mounted to the ESX server itself, which is what we see here. The snapshot volume is not there anymore. And that's about it. Next on the integration between XtremIO, the VSI plugin, and Recover Point is integration and the ability to orchestrate a specific point in time using VMware Site Recovery Manager. So how's that working? Well, what you see here is a Recover Point cluster, basically two RPAs replicating from my production XtremIO single 10 terabyte XBrick to the DR 10 terabyte XBricks running a Recover Point as well. And as you can see, replication is already ongoing. In fact, we can actually see how many of point in times Recover Point have already created. That's one of the most amazing features in Recover Point, the ability to really orchestrate point in time snapshots. So in this case, my RPO is 60 seconds, the best in the industry where it comes to all flash arrays, where we can guarantee 60 seconds RPO. And all of these are point in time that I can recover from. And that's all good and nice, but there is one small problem. If you are using VMware Site Recovery Manager, no matter what the underlying storage architecture that you are using, it can only allow you to fail over to the last point in time. So let's think about it for a while. So I have three VMs called PVM01, 02, and 03. They all reside on a data store called source physical RPA VMFS01. This is the volume, the data store that Recover Point is actually replicating. And that will pose a problem because let's assume that I've got a virus outbreak. Will it be beneficial for me to fail over these three VMs to the last point in time? I mean, SRM will fail over all of these VMs at that specific data stores, but they will fail over with the virus infection inside of them. So that's no good. So what can you do? Well, that's the trick. If I now go to one of these VMs into the EMC VSI tab and then Recover Point Management and the Protection Group tab, I can see this VM is part of a Site Recovery Manager protected group called SRM Protected Group. So VSI basically taking the data from the SRM that is installed on this server as well. And it's also showing me the Recover Point consistency group that this VM is a member of. So if we go back to the Recover Point volume, we can see that that is indeed the name of the consistency group. So back here, what are the things that we can do? Well, if I now go to the Consistency Group tab, I can again see the CJ that this VM is a member of, and I can see all the point in times that this volume has been snapped by Recover Point, right? So all of these are the ones that are there. And now what I can actually do is click the point in time that I think is the better one. So for example, if there was a virus outbreak at 9:46, I can go back to, let's say, 9:43 and apply this specific point in time, and then we basically trick VMware SRM to think that this is the last point in time, where in fact we are dictating a specific point in time to be used by SRM. So that's an amazing collaboration between us to VMware. The other thing that you can also do is change some policies in regard to SRM and recovery point from here. So for example, you can let it allow testing failover while the clusters are disconnected, the recovery point clusters. Remember, we have one cluster of recovery point in the protected site and one in the recovery site. So we can press OK here, and that will apply the setting as well. Another view that you can enable is to press the virtual machine button, and then we will see all the VMs that are part of this consistency group. So that's again allow you to view all of these from the same type of the screen, so you can see which VMs will be applied with a specific point in time that you can force SRM to use. And really, if we go back now to the point in time selection, we're just going to select one that I think will be more consistent in the type of the data that we're going to fail over. We're going to press the apply button. The VSI plugin is going to give me a warning, are you sure that you want to apply this specific point in time? I'm going to press the OK button, and that's really, it's all now successful. So now what I can do is go to the SRM interface, which is what you see here. Go to the recovery plans. I've already set up the sites and the protected group and the recovery plan. And now when I'm actually going to press the run recovery, which is a true recovery, it will basically use the point in time that I've asked it to. So very, very simple, seamlessly integrated into Site Recovery Manager, and that's pretty much it. SRM will now go ahead, try to shut down all the VMs at the protected site. Of course, if the production site is down, there is nothing to shut down, but it tries to do it just in case. And as you can see, it already reversed the replication, so this site is now becoming the recovery site. That's again all good as long as the production site is down. And if I will go to the DR site, we can see that SRM is now trying to run the failover itself, and it will basically power up the VMs. So there you go, all the VMs are now up and running at the recovery site. The Windows VMs operation system is up and running there. And the most important thing, it's actually up and running using the specific point in time that I've selected. Another amazing integration between Recovery Point, XtremIO, and VMware Site Recovery Manager. Next, I want to introduce you to the integration between the VSI plugin to EMC AppSync. EMC AppSync is a copy management software that allows you to leverage the XtremIO snapshot capabilities in order to take application consistent backup of either VMs, databases such as Oracle or Microsoft SQL. It even allows you to do a refresh and restore, or just test and dev refresh, where you can take your production database volumes and refresh them in your test and dev environments, all through a very easy management console. So that's very rich set software to do those things. And this is the console of the EMC AppSync itself. However, this demo is about the VSI plugin. So everything that you could do from the EMC AppSync console itself, which is also web-based, you can also do from the VSI plugin. So here we can see the VSI plugin, and I've already registered the AppSync server with the plugin itself. And what I'm going to do now is actually take a data store backup that will actually utilize VM snapshots inside the VMs themselves, followed by a crash level consistency type of backup at the volume level itself. So as you can see here, right now there's no snapshot that AppSync took yet. And what you see here is an SLO that I've already created in AppSync, meaning to take an XtremIO based snapshot out of that specific data store every 24 hours. Again, you can modify it if you want to, but I'm just going to utilize it. And what I'm going to tell it to do is not wait for the next cycle to occur, the next 24 hours, but actually run it now. So let's press the run button. It will ask me, are you sure that you want to run this now? And I'm going to say yes. And it's going to process this request. Went successfully. And now what we're going to do and see is that very soon we're starting to see all of these VMs that are residing on that data store starting to have their own snapshot taking place. That's because we want to achieve as application consistency closest that we possibly can, and then followed by a crash level consistency snapshot at the array level itself. Here we can see AppSync starting to take VM snapshot out of all the VMs on this data store. Only the VM that are up and running, the one that are powered off, crash consistent, is good enough. Okay, now that AppSync has finished its backup, we can see the first copy here, followed by another view that we can see from the XtremIO GUI that a snapshot has indeed been taken. We can see the AppSync tagging group. What I'm going to do now is actually run another copy, just to show that you can actually have multiple point-in times based on multiple snapshots, of course, that you can restore from. Okay, now that the second backup has finished, and if I press the refresh button, we can now see that I have two different snapshots, two different point in time that I can recover from. We can also cross-examine this with the other view, two snapshots at the XtremIO array level itself. So next, let's move to a restore operation. So before we're running restore, we may want to check the AppSync event history by pressing the event history button here. And here we can see all the action that AppSync took, including the VM snapshot backup, the VM snapshot deletion, the array-based snapshot, and so on and so forth. So we can have a good view of what we want to do. Now, we can either try to mount the data store, that's one way to do so, but let's assume the more common use case where we actually have a specific VM that we want to restore. So here I have a VM called launcher-03, and let's assume I want to restore it because it got corrupted. So we can go to all EMC VSI action, AppSync VM restore, and remember, we can either restore the entire VM, which is what we're going to do now, or we can either restore files from within a VM, which is very, very cool functionality. Here we can select the point in time that we want to restore this VM from. If you recall, a couple of seconds ago, I showed you that I took two different snapshots of this data store. So I just pick one that I think is more relevant, press the next button. AppSync now asks me, do you want to restore this specific VM or maybe some other VMs? Let's just click the other VM just to see what we can actually see. So because we took a volume-based snapshot with the VM snapshot itself, you can actually list and choose many other VM from that data store to be restored. However, for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to continue with this specific VM that I want to restore. AppSync now asks me, do you want to restore this VM to the same original location or maybe another location? I'm just going to select the same one. And here comes the more interesting stuff. So AppSync asked me, what do you want me to do if the source VM still exists? By default, the operation is fail the restore. The source VM is still here, so I don't want to fail the restore. And actually what I want you to do is to delete the disk before performing restore. The most safer option actually will be delete disk after performing the restore, but since I'm okay with the fourth option, I'm just going to select it as well. So it can actually go ahead, delete the launcher-3 VM and then restore it from a backup. Press the next button. Now AppSync asks me to which ESX server do you want me to mount that VM. So I'm just going to select SC01 VDI. Do you want to prefer instant restore? Instant restore is another interesting feature. Instead of just using storage vMotion and copy the VM from the snapshot volume, AppSync will mount the snapshot volume, power on the VM from that snapshot volume, and then run a storage vMotion. This will ensure a faster recovery operation. However, I'm going to select with a slower option and not go with an instant restore. So now AppSync shows me all the finalized settings, and I'm just going to press the finish button, and that's about it. What will happen now is that the data store, the snapshot that I asked you to restore from, is going to be mounted to those ESX servers, followed by a rescan of the HBA adapters, followed by running an ESX signature on that volume, and then lastly being copied over on the top of the source volume. So let's see how it all goes. Okay, so the first thing that we can see is that AppSync never performed a restore operation directly from the snapshot itself. So what it's going to do, and that's another revolutionary thing that XtremIO offer without penalty of capacity or performance, it's going to take a snapshot and take another snapshot of this and then use that snapshot from the restoring operation, which is what you see here with the tab granular restore snapshot. It then going to take that snapshot and mount it to those ESXi hosts, which is what you see here. So the volume is currently being mapped, and you can see the mapping LAN ID. As you can see, the snapshot has already been mounted. As usual with ESX, it doesn't mount it with the same volume because the original source volume is still here. So it's going to give it the snap minus suffix before the name of the data store itself, which is what we see here. And there you go. AppSync just deleted the original launcher 3, which is what you see here. And it's now going to actually use the snapshot VM instead of the original VM. There you go. This is now done. So now it's copying the launcher 03 from that snapshot volume to the original mgmt-infra data store as we asked it to do. That job is now done. Now AppSync just remove the snapshot volume. And as you can see, it doesn't have any LAN ID anymore. There you go. And now it's not even there because AppSync deleted the snapshot from the snapshot that it used to the restore operation. And that's it. We are all done. So now we can actually go ahead and power on the VM itself. There you go, it's all up and running. Thank you for watching.